Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour podcast. I am Kyle Anthony, your host for today. We are talking UFC Vegas 109, headlined by Anthony Hernandez and Roman Dolidze. We're going to be breaking down four plays here on the show today. Now, listen, we're coming off a nice profitable evening. Last weekend, went 3-1 our plays, hit our 4% best bet play. Another profitable night for clients. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. Already have another 4% play up, 3 plays in total right now, and we'll be adding to that as we get closer to fight night. And with that being said, let's dive into the main event of the evening between Anthony Hernandez and Roman Dolidze. Now, you've got Anthony Hernandez sitting at minus 370 on the comeback here. You've got Roman Dolidze plus 270. Now, you got Hernandez here, and he is the absolute definition of a cardio machine. I mean, this guy's gonna come forward. He's gonna just rinse and repeat with takedowns, and he's not gonna stop. He's gonna have that smothering pressure and really just stay on you and look to win positionally. And if he can just outpace you, that's really, how he finds victories over the, round after round after round. He starts to melt his opponent. He starts to find opportunities to really just win positionally, slow them down, find that finish, or start to bank rounds. Now, on the other side here, you've got Roman Dolidze. This guy is an elite level grappler overall. And you look at stats here, and the stats you got, he has a 33% takedown defense rate. The reason why it's so low is the fact that he's very comfortable off his back. He's confident off his back. He doesn't mind if the opponent wants to take him down because he believes in his grappling ability. Now, the other part of it is that he does have that physicality. He does have that strength advantage. And I think some of these are the things that really are going to help him in these scrambles when he's going up there and they're they're battling up against the fence. Plus, if they do get to the ground, you've seen Dolidze have very slick transitions, very tricky reversals and sweeps, and he does a lot of great things on the ground overall. Plus, I would say over the last few fights, he really has, looked in career best shape. There are, he's getting older, but I think he has actually, his cardio's look a little bit better. I think there's things that he's doing that have really, impressed me over his last few fights. Now, one of the things where you look at Hernandez, and especially at this price, you're talking a minus 370, is that he has some holes in his game. There are some issues in his game overall. One of the biggest ones is going to be he can be hurt. We've seen him hurt to the body. You saw, Mikel Pereira, he goes out there, throws a nice body kick, hurt him, almost was a finish, finishing sequence there. We've even seen, Edmund Shabazian, who, was threatening on a choke when he was looking for a takedown. I mean, there have been some things where he has been in some very, tough situations, tough position situations. And now credit to Hernandez, he gets through them. He's got, can push through that adversity. He's tough. There are those things that he does have here, but you also got to add in the fact that Roman is a guy that really can threaten anywhere. He's definitely a more dangerous guy between these two. And, he's going to have the bigger power by far. And the finishing upside, I think, really kind of lays with Dolidze. And, he's going to have the power advantage on the feet. And he also will have that submission ability on the ground. And that is where I think that this fight can be very interesting, because you got Hernandez, who's going to shoot for those takedowns, who's going to look for those takedowns, and going to put his head in definitely some iffy spots where Roman is very slick with his submission game, can really latch something in. We've seen him do it multiple times here, and that's where Fluffy has to do. He's not going to want to stand at range. I think he will have some volume on the range, but at distance. But I think that Roman is going to land far more impactful shots, is going to force Fluffy, which Fluffy's going to do anyway, look for those takedowns. I think that Roman has the strength advantage, physicality advantage. He's a harder hitter between the two. And I think also that he can scramble out of some of these and find his own opportunity to sink something in. I think this line is very wide here. I think that Fluffy should be the favorite here. I think that this is way out of whack, I think, at this point. So I got to go Roman Dolidze here at plus 270 to get the job done. Next one here we're going to talk about is Iasmin, Lucindo. She is minus 215 on the comeback here. We've got Angela Hill. She is plus 178. Now, this matchup is really an up-and-comer, a young up-and-comer in Lucindo going up against a UFC vet, a longtime UFC vet in Angela Hill. Now, your first thing that probably sticks out is their ages, and you've got Lucindo. She's 23 years old. You've got Hill. She's 40. And, normally when you're looking at that type of gap in age, it definitely highly favors the younger fighter, over a very large sample size. But with that being said, Hill has not looked like some aging out fighter. She really has had this resurgence here. She's 3-1 over her last four, and I thought she's looked pretty good. Excuse me. She definitely has, not only just getting some victories there, but her win margins are when she loses, the margins are very close. When she wins, they're very close. She's always competitive in fights. She's scrappy. She has good footwork. She's light on her feet. And there are some things that, a crafty vet can do, and find angles to bank around or win around. And one of her biggest advantages is going to be her volume. She is somebody who pushes out a very high volume. It's something that she has done really throughout her career, especially even as of late. She's really just pushing the volume out, giving the judges something to take a look at, and being consistent with that. And in this situation, she averages double the significant strikes landed per minute compared to Lucindo. Now, you look at it statistically, Hill lands nearly 6 significant strikes per minute, while Lucindo lands under 3. And that's where I think that Hill can really kind of dictate the pace, dictate the action a little bit, push out that volume, push out that pace, and really force Lucindo. Now, we know Lucindo is going to be looking for takedowns. That's where she's going to be looking to go. She will have some power advantage as well, but I do like the fact that Hill has really added takedowns to her game, and we've seen it over her last few fights. Her last 4 fights, she has secured 9 takedowns, and I think that she can be offensive here. I think she can look for these takedowns, get some control time, maybe win on the feet and push out that volume and then find takedowns. And that's where I think that, this line again is another spot where I do think this line is a little bit wide here. And I think that, we've seen also Lucindo where she is taken down and she is on her back, she can be held down, she can be controlled. And we've seen that against Limoges. So there are those things here. I think this is a spot here where Angela Hill plus 178 is value side here. I like this spot, and I think she gets the job done. Now, next one here we're going to talk about is Elijah Smith. He is minus 700 on the comeback. Here we have Kazama. He is plus 475. Now, this is an absolute smash spot for Smith. And obviously, the line is indicating that we're talking minus 700, but we're going to look for a method of victory here to play. But when you look at Kazama, I mean, this guy is, I don't think UFC caliber. I don't think, he really presents, much of a future in the UFC. He's very one-dimensional. He's got jiu-jitsu. He does not really have the wrestling ability. And also on top of that is his striking is pretty poor. I mean, he just does not have any real striking ability. He's got a negative striking differential. I mean, there's a lot of problems there. And I think one of the biggest issues for him here in this fight is the fact that he is very hittable and he's chinny. And that is just a bad mix when you're about to face an explosive fighter like Smith. Now, he has 3 in Kazama. He has 3 UFC fights. In every one of those fights, he's been dropped. In one of them, he was dropped twice. So out of his 3 UFC fights, he's been dropped 4 times. That's not a good look. But out of 2 of those, of which he was knocked out in the first round. So this is a guy that can be hit, can be dropped, can be knocked out. Out of his 4 career losses, 3 of them were by knockout. So, I mean, it's just opening up more opportunities here for really lining up for Smith to find that finish. And we even look at the Gregorius fight for Kazama, where, Gregorius is another guy, not UFC caliber, but he was landing on Kazama. And before the finish, Gregorius was outlanded him 26-2 and dropped him. But when Kazama was on his back, he was able to sink in a triangle choke and get the finish, which was kind of a meme-like finish, but he was able to get the finish. But again, he's just way too hittable, head on the center line. And I think Smith can land the big shots because Smith, you look at him, he is athletic. He is explosive. He's going to be the way more harder hitter between these two, the better striker. And as well as he picks his shots much better. And I think that he's going to really time a nice counter, really start to hurt Kazama on the feet. But you also look at it is that also Smith is the better wrestler. So even if Kazama's looking for takedowns or looking for anything to try to get this fight to the ground, I don't think he does. I think that Smith doesn't really want to deal with that. He knows Kazama has good jiu-jitsu, so he's going to want to keep this on the feet, look to land the bigger shots here. Kazama needs takedowns in order to find any type of success here. And I think the bigger, more physical guy in Elijah Smith is going to be able to kind of, fend off all those takedowns, land the bigger shots here. And where I'm going with this is that I think that Smith gets this finish inside the first 2 rounds. And you can get Elijah Smith inside the first 2 rounds by knockout is minus 135. That's getting off the big minus 700 money line number. I like that spot here. I think he does it in brutal fashion and finds that victory. And the last one here we're going to talk about is Joselyne Edwards. She is minus 350 on the comeback here. We have Priscilla Cachoeira. She is plus 255. Now, when Edwards first got the UFC, I was just not very high on her. Not that I'm that high on her right now, that she's this great fighter, but you can tell she's 25 years old when she first came to the UFC, and she's definitely elevated. You know, she's definitely getting better, rounding out her skill set a little bit more, and just kind of starting to come into her own and get a lot better. And now you look on the other side here with Priscilla, and you know, they call her Zombie Girl, and they don't call her that for nothing. I mean, she's going to come forward, she's going to have heavy pressure, she's going to stay in your face, and she's going to absorb a ton of damage. She's just someone who just does not really have any type of striking defense. She has no, defensive awareness. And you look at really, statistically speaking, you know, she lands 4 significant strikes per minute while absorbing 7. Not a good look there overall. She's very hittable. She's now 36 years old. I don't really see anything improving for her here. And you also got to add in, this is short notice for her as well. And I think not only does I think that Edwards can land some heavy shots on the feet, but I also do think that she can utilize the wrestling. She can get this fight to the ground. And anyone who's really wanted to take Priscilla down was able to take Priscilla down. She's got no real grappling, no submission ability, no real get-up game at all. Once she's on the ground, I do think that, you know, Edwards might have a choice and say, do I want to submit her or do I want to knock her out? You know, which is the one that I'm going to be able to do here. Out of Priscilla's 6 losses, 4 are by submission. So the path is there. It already, you know, the vulnerability is there, you know, that she could be taken down, you know, and I do think that that finish will materialize. I do think that, you know, she's going to get the control time, going to get top control, going to really be able to win positionally and then find that finish. So in this spot here, I am going Joselyne Edwards to win inside the distance, getting off the minus 350 number. We can do inside the distance at plus 185. I think she puts a stamp on it, and I think she finds that finish. So there you have it for my plays for UFC Vegas 109. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. And we're coming off another profitable evening last weekend. Let's keep that momentum going. See you next week, and let's cash.